Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Clue Crew podcast. It's Katie here, and I am sitting here, not physically with my friends, but I have on the line Maddie.
Hello.
And sadly, Allison is not here tonight, but we do have CJ.
Hi.
Yay!
Hello.
You may know her as the resident Henry Bolet stan. Realize who I need. So excited to have you on Henry Bolet week.
I'm glad to be here.
Because obviously this isn't Legend of the Crystal Skull week. It's Henry Bolet week because you're here.
Of course.
We love it.
He's the main character.
He's not the main character.
Like Nancy Who? It's just him. I just played.
I love it. I love it so much. All right, well, y'all can see where this is going. In addition to talking about Henry Bolet, we will also be covering a couple other things relating to this game, a few other things that are deemed worthy of a discussion. Such as, how about just overall opinions on the game, as we usually start with, Henry Bolet aside.
Yeah.
I love this game. I think it's just such a solid overall game. Like, I think the story works out, the characters are really interesting, the vibe is just great, and I love the
Yes.
puzzles. It's just really well done. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I always enjoy like the spooky vibes. But like I've said this before, but when I was little, like I just never played this game. I was like, I don't want to. I don't care. I don't know what it's about. And I just waited. It was like the last game that I hadn't finished that I finally played, and then I fell in love when I finally finished it. But like every time before, I would try to play it, and I'd get like 10 minutes in and then give up. I don't know why, but I'm so glad that I got through and decided to play it again.
It is definitely a good one. I will say it wasn't as long as I thought I remembered it being on this last playthrough because I played like 90% of it within a like 3-hour window that I had free today.
Yeah.
But I know that's also but I know that's also because I was trying to rush it, right? And so I was like doing straight spoilers for all the puzzles. So
oh yeah, me too. Me too.
To be fair, if you're actually trying to solve it and play it proper, then I'm sure it is a lot longer because I think I remember it being longer the last time I actually sat down and figured out everything myself.
Yeah, in my notes I said that it's a good length, so I know it's not really short, but like if you're just cheating the way through, then it's gonna be short.
Exactly. So I'm not holding that against it at all. It's really well done in general. The way everything is laid out, and honestly, like out of the whole series, this is one of the ones that I feel like the vibe is just so immaculate. I mean,
so
really
perfect. Like New Orleans raining freaking skeleton men in a creepy house on a cemetery. It's perfect. Like
yes,
the vibes are perfect.
I agree. It's very traditional to what you think of with New Orleans, but yet at the same time, it's not like exploding in your face with like stereotypes, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like they did a good job of hitting all of the New Orleans like bullet points. You know, you have talk about Mardi Gras, the parades a little bit, the cruise, Jolly Roger crew, the hoodoo stuff with Renee.
Some of the culture, yeah.
But at the same time, they also put in a couple of more non-traditional Louisiana elements. Oh, there's a bog too. Let's not forget the swamp.
Oh.
The gator.
Bernie.
But it's all done like in a subtle way that makes sense to the plot, you know?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I agree. I had the same thought.
It's definitely one of the games that I'd like to just like in real life. I'd want to tour around the house and like the graveyard and stuff because I love cemeteries. I want to go to New Orleans so badly. So like being there and being in the spooky vibes without actually, you know, being there. It's like a nice taste, you know.
I agree. For some reason, CJ, I just remembered the post that you made about like thinking about Henry Bolet and how he can't eat or use the bathroom or something like
No,
that.
I was like tagging post before, and I was writing out Henry, and then it auto like filled the tags like it sometimes does, and it says hashtag Henry has a bathroom, and I was like, when did he get one? Like, what is the context of this post? Because I know that he doesn't have one.
I'm dead.
There's
I don't
there's
know.
not even a door like implying that there's a bathroom or a kitchen, just like straight up
Okay,
nothing.
look, this is my biggest problem with the games like Crystal Skull and Thornton Hall. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
what is so hard about just plopping down a door that you
Yeah.
can't go through? Like, I don't understand. They did that in Haunted Mansion. There were doors
Mm-hmm.
that you couldn't go into. So
Oh
why
my God,
is it
so many doors.
so hard to do that in the other games? Yeah, exactly. There's a ton of
It's
doors
like,
in Haunted Mansion.
did they just forget, or like did they just? It's like, you know, with these games, it's like you can have a full house, but you can't go outside. But if you can go outside, you can't have a full house. Sorry,
Yeah.
like no bathroom. You have to choose.
I think you're overlooking the intentional stylistic choice that this has to do with, like, the tortured nature of the Bolets.
They don't wait. What if they're vampires? They don't need to eat or use the
This
bathroom.
could also be a reasonable conclusion.
I've cracked the code.
We figured it out. Listen, the whole crypt, no bodies in it. Those are all fake.
Uh.
Because everyone is a vampire.
It's just like a vampire community. They all live in the cemetery. That's beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. They should have gone down that route in the game.
I mean,
What
they did. It was a subtle hint.
I was thinking, like, I mean, they've mentioned vampires sometimes in NCG games, like they've mentioned werewolves a lot. But we haven't had that many, like, straight up, oh, Nancy comes to some place and is like, someone here is a vampire. Like, I want that. Give me.
I mean, I think after the whole Kerr thing, it's hard to redo the lady convinced she's turning into some kind of
Yes.
Yeah, but I just want an excuse for another spooky game. Please.
Me. Always.
Like, they had the
spooky game.
chance with Midnight Salem, but they just fumbled it. It didn't work out.
God.
I still won't forgive them for those jump scares.
Every time Midnight in Salem gets brought up on this podcast, I just get so angry.
I saw the post today that was like, nace your games as the different months, and then I get to October and it's like Waverly, and I was like, you know what? With the potential, it would have been Midnight in Salem if it had been done well.
God, if they just hadn't fired everybody and they had let the employees finish making the game. That's all it would have taken.
Yeah, I need to let that go.
I know. Clearly, I have a lot of issues with this.
I seriously, like, when I saw the teaser for, like, the actual gameplay, I just sat down and cried. Like real tears. It was so upsetting.
Oh, I know. It's like
all right,
the
back to Crystal Skull.
Yes. Anyway, was Crystal Skull on the games as month list anywhere?
Hold on, let me check. I just retweeted it, or
the game takes place in May. So
it is not.
Okay.
The vibes aren't there for a month.
It's more of a time of the day. Like, you gotta get rainy weather. That's the ideal time.
Stormy night kind of game. I think it's the only game that at the beginning of the game it gives you a warning to turn your lights off.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote that down because I remembered how cool it was, and I was like every time I go to play it, I forget that's there.
Mm-hmm.
And then it has the little opening scene. I love it. I love it.
I know. It's really cool because I feel like there are other games in the series that are equally, if not even more so, like, benefited by turning off the lights, but it's just interesting that this is the one that they chose to put that on.
Yeah, and it just feels so like this is 2007. This is perfect. Like all the vibes are there, you know? And for being a game made in 2007, it's really good. And
it is. It looks really good. I was noticing the graphics this time around.
Especially, like, not just, like, the people, but, like, the house itself and, like, the surroundings are really, really beautiful.
Yes.
I was really... Oh, go ahead.
That's one thing I'll applaud her Interactive for is, like, they've been making some good quality, pretty games since like the 90s. They're
Oh yeah.
ahead of the time, you know, like.
I agree. I mean, they were such a small and independent studio, and they weren't even working with like a really modern format either. So
Mhm.
the fact that they were able to pump out games that looked as good as they were with their time schedule and all of the limitations in their actual building blocks to develop the
Mhm.
games, like super,
Very
super, super
impressive.
good. Anyway, go ahead, Maddie.
Oh, I was just saying I noticed a lot graphics wise in this game that I thought were really cool were how the shadows were structured in some of the places where they're curved to kind of look like people, I felt like
Oh,
Oh.
the one that really sticks out to me is in where Henry is. There's like an umbrella or like a coat rack,
Mhm.
and it curves in such a way that it almost makes the back wall look kind of three-dimensional, and it looks like someone standing there and like with like a cloak over their head or something.
That's
And
so
it
oh,
like
cool.
when you're turning, it like kind of looks like someone standing there, and it freaked me out a couple of times. And it's really interesting that like I think there's a lot of shadow elements and how the game is structured that are
Mhm.
really cool from a design perspective and also really benefit with like that darkened atmosphere.
The attention to detail, it's so like that adds so much, you know.
Mhm.
yes, for real. And especially now that I've actually been like experimenting with 3D modeling myself, I've noticed that I'm like noticing stuff so much more now, like the texturing choices or just the general like I'm observing objects that I never really paid any mind to in the past. But I'm just like it's so interesting to see like the individual items that they include in the environments. Like
Mhm.
one of the ones that I remember, not that this is relevant like at all, but just a random thing was that in the curio shop, for some reason, I never even realized that there is a big ass vase that's literally like floor to ceiling height that takes
Mm.
up like a huge space right next to like the coffin
Hmm.
with the mummy in it.
I never
And
noticed that either.
right, that's what I'm saying. Like it blends into the environment so much that you don't really notice it unless you're looking. But it's stuff like
And
that that I think is really interesting.
that's so realistic to like real life. Like, you know, have you ever played a game and it's like the surroundings just don't feel real?
Mm-hmm.
But that attention to detail with like adding like little knickknacks and stuff around like the houses and like the shops and stuff just makes it feel more real, and the fact that you don't even notice that, like, that's so
Yeah,
cool. I love that.
agreed.
One thing I will say that it still bothers me with the backlighting on this game is that when I first played it, my computer had a busted graphics card and its brightness was already skewed.
Oh
And
no.
so
Oh
I was
no.
only operating with like half of the backlight capability, and I remember I'd had the only way I could see anything in this game and a couple other ones was to go in and like up the contrast to a
Oh my
certain amount
god.
so everything looked like a hazy, like crappy coloring.
Oh
Oh
So the
no.
no.
saturation was upped too so that I could like even distinguish things. So
Oh
it was
my
such a
god.
much better experience now on my new computer. I was like, "Oh my gosh, it looks actually pretty."
Yes. I
I
did
I
notice
also
how
like
dark this game is.
it
Mhm.
is, and of course that's with the vibe as well. But I also noticed that they had a lot of not cutscenes, but like they had some scenes where it was like, yeah, it was cutscenes. Like the beginning part where you walk in and you see the skeleton man, and then the part where you like do the thing with the bird heads, and then it opens up, you know? You know what I'm talking about? It's like the
Oh
cutscenes.
yeah, yeah.
I think
The
they did that really well for being 2007.
It's crazy too because I was noticing the one with the buzzard statue, like,
Mhm.
especially the one at the end though. Like
Mhm.
after you stack everything and you put the eyeball in the skeleton hand, and it like pans up and shows that side view of the buzzard at the top.
Yeah.
It looked so good. I was really struck by it. I was like, this is 2007 graphics, man.
The
They
use
really
of
did what they had to do.
the use of lighting is also just super impressive and cool. Like with the
Mhm.
lightning and the rain, especially in that last puzzle where you're
Yeah.
just getting
Mhm.
glimpses and flashes. It's just so pretty.
And also just how well the rain effect was done in this game. I feel like when you
Mhm.
compare it to like um the later game Trail of the Twister and the rain in that one, like
Oh,
the rain looks
yeah.
so much better in Crystal Skull. Like whatever
Yeah,
they
why
did,
is that?
it really worked.
We should talk about the story.
Yeah, story. So I thought this one was interesting because, correct me if I'm wrong, because there may totally be other examples of this, but this is at least one of the only games in the series where some of the key plot points that are going on are actually actively happening in the background as you're playing the game, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
the whole thing with Dr. Buford, how he was in the process of doing his whole thing with the crypt and the painting and all
Oh,
of that when
yeah.
you first got there. And so that plot line was still kind of unresolved even after Nancy showed up. And so you don't even
Mhm.
meet Dr. Buford as Bess formally until after
Yeah.
you technically kind of have a run-in with him as Nancy. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, that
I'm
makes
not sure
sense.
how to explain it really, but
I
Yeah.
understand. A lot of the other games, it's like you get there and you meet everyone immediately, and all the things have already happened, and like you just have to work from there. But this
Mhm.
one is more of like it's happening because it's just supposed to be like one night, so it's all happening
yeah.
like as you're playing, which is really cool.
Yeah,
I like
it's like
that.
the whole timeline of the game in general is kind of like that. I feel like it progresses in a way that feels totally different.
It
Hmm.
really does, and I think it's really well done because it feels super realistic. Like the fact that
Mhm.
the stores close at the same like at the time. Also, if you try to call Professor Hotchkiss back after things have closed later in the day, it goes straight to voicemail because she's gone home for the day. And
Oh, that's so
like
cool.
everything is just really well matched up and lined up to make
Oh,
it feel super realistic.
oh, I love that so much. And you know what?
I
Sorry.
no, you go, no.
um even the fact that when you call the authenticator, it's like closer to the end of the game, like
Mhm.
around the time that everything is closing up, and you call him and the office forwarded it to his cell phone, which could
Yep.
therefore imply that it's after business hours.
Mhm. Exactly.
So cool.
It's such a different gameplay than a lot of the other games where it's like you use time but more as a like a tool really to change
Mm-hmm.
things from day to nighttime, whereas this was like legitimately like sequential and with an actual timeline.
Hmm.
Yes, I love that. That's it. It's like the timeline is so much more tangible than most of the
Yes.
Hmm.
others, and I love
Mhm.
it. It really makes it feel more real, like you said.
Mhm.
Yeah, because some of the other games, it's like I appreciate that they have like a mix. Some games are more like that, and some are
Mm-hmm.
actually have like a like a clock, and like you have things to do each day, and you can pretty much play for weeks and weeks and weeks, however long you want, even though it doesn't really make sense. But this actually makes sense, and things happen when they should happen.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Because like sometimes I'm playing the games, and I'm like, I've spent so many days like doing like little side quests that like it just
Yes.
doesn't make sense. Like, why would I be here for this long?
Yeah. Honestly, though.
Like, shouldn't I get fired by now for like not solving the mystery?
I don't know.
But no one
Chantal would
cares.
be like, you can stay on as long as you want, free cooking and maid work.
I love that.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's a good point. I never really thought of that, but like that does make it feel more real.
the way that the story is told in this game almost reads more like a novel or a movie
Mhm.
almost,
Yeah.
because it
Yeah, I
is
would read.
also linear.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
I don't know
And it
how to
also
say that
feels
word
like
apparently.
some of the other games, it feels like you're kind of looking for something to do to trigger the next thing, but this one
Mm-hmm.
it feels like it's just straight ahead, like what you're doing next, and it does feel like you're reading a novel because it leads you to like the next thing.
But
And it's
yet,
interesting because
no,
it's
sorry, go ahead.
done in a w oh, you're good, I was just gonna say and it's interesting too because even though it does kind of read like a novel and things kind of lock into place as you go along, it still isn't a forced sequential situation, right? A lot of the times the problem with those more like novelistic type games is that each of the events have to happen one after the other,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so you're searching for triggers, whereas this, there are things that you can do, but it's structured in such a way that you have kind of like a freedom of exploration in each stage that the game wants you to be set up for.
Mhm.
And I also wonder if that's kind of they use Nancy and Bess too are kind of the flip flops between those stages too, right? Because you have to get
Mm-hmm.
everything done from one and then you call her. Like when you get stuck, there really isn't a trigger. It's just, oh, I should probably call Bess, and that sets you up with the needed information. And they kind of might have used that to that advantage to make it work out.
True.
And I like that because like some of the games that require you to call like to get information from someone else, I don't think to call like I'm like immediately. I'm of course I've said before I don't like phone conversations, so I don't think, oh, I have to call Bess and George to get them to do this thing for me. But
Same.
with this, it's like your first thought is to call Bess because you play as Bess. You know, it makes more sense.
Yeah.
You're not actually like having a conversation with her. You're just kind of like flipping back and forth. So it's like you're not like depending on like someone on the phone. I mean, you do at some points, but it's not as it makes more sense, you know. It makes more sense.
Yeah, 100%.
The progression too of the storyline makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of the times we make fun of the fact that Nancy totally disregards her hired case for In Search of Treasure instead.
Yeah.
But here it's kind of different too because you're kind of just thrown into this situation where you weren't there for a mystery and you kind of stumble upon one, but you really don't know anything about what the circumstances or who this character
Mhm.
is that you're seeing.
Mhm.
And so to like figure out who he is, it's such a vague concept that there's a lot of freedom for you to kind of do whatever the heck you want anyway,
Yes.
especially when there's no cabs coming either. And so it
Yeah.
makes sense that you would play around with this and kind of go through the motions of different things and like poke your nose into things. And it also just from both like a personal standpoint and definitely a Nancy standpoint, the more you find out about things in the house, it makes sense that you'd be like, oh my gosh, like let's see if I can figure out like I want to find this crystal skull.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it still does hold a little bit with like like figuring out if Henry's okay, because then you still go into his personal life with like Summer and stuff. So
Mhm.
you get to know that part of the story with that, but also going into like the crystal skull stuff, and then like all the skeleton dude stuff, you know. So it's pretty
Right.
cool.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Maddie. It's really, really cool how they set it up.
I also like that that Nancy just kind of has like free reign to snoop like everywhere, because immediately like Renee gives her the keys to her room, and then like when she's talking to Henry, he like barely cares that she was snooping around in his house. Like he's like, do you snoop in fireplaces and stuff? And then he kind of just forgets about it. And then even when he figures out that she overheard his conversation with Summer, like he doesn't really get that angry, because I know some other games the suspects get so freaking angry when Nancy does stuff, and then they'll be all pissy and like say, "Oh, go away! I don't want to talk to you right now." But Henry never
Right.
does that, and
He's
like
too
Renee
sweet.
doesn't do that either. Like no one is angry at her for snooping, and I love that.
I do too. It's almost like right off the bat, Nancy gets permission from Henry to like
Yeah,
Mhm.
look at everything and snoop around,
yeah,
and he's
yeah.
just like, okay, whatever, that's
Because
fine.
clearly he doesn't want to be there like sorting through stuff. So if she
Right.
wants to do that, you know.
And I also think it kind of speaks to the fact that he doesn't really have any connection with this place at all.
Mhm.
It's just a place that he might have visited in between going from boarding school to summer camps. Um,
Yeah.
it
It's really
wasn't really a
sad.
home for him, so he's not really attached or concerned with the stranger wandering through the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also like when he has to give away the glass eye, he seems like he only really like cares about it since like it's, you know, to be respectful to his dead great uncle. But after that he's like, yeah, take it, you know. Don't blackmail me.
Can
The
I
bullying.
literally that post with the cat and the tears in the
Yes.
book?
I put off the dialogue option. It came up so early, and I was like, we're gonna wait until there's literally nothing else I can do.
I feel so bad when I have to do that. I'm
I
like,
know.
but it's like the part you either say that I can't forget about this, but I don't want to be mean. I don't want to make him sad. So then I'm like, then you have to blackmail him, and it's just bad either way.
I mean,
I
the
know.
second option, he does kind of just give it to you.
I've never done the second option because
I
I feel
don't think I
mean.
have either.
Wait, which one?
It's like the one where it's like you either say, I can forget about it if you just, you know, do something for me, or you say like you're hard on him and it's like, no, you this is bad. This is objectively bad. I can't forget about this. Like, you
Oh
know.
no, I meant the I can just forget it. Like the
Oh
other one,
yeah.
the nice one. It's because he offers it up. Nancy isn't like, well, if you do something,
Exactly. Exactly.
He's kind of like, wait, I can do something for you, you know, one for me, one. It's more of on
Exactly.
him a little. I mean, it's not really on him at
It's a
all.
little
But
blackmaily, but
it's definitely still blackmailing, but I felt less guilty that he brought up the option rather than the aggressive one where Nancy's like, well,
Exactly.
Honestly.
I just feel so bad. Like he's
give
freaking
him a hug.
stressed. Yeah, give him a hug. He's stressed. He just lost a family member. He's like lost in the world and has like this terrible girlfriend, and you want to blackmail him. Really, Nancy?
I will say, I love like the thought of the fact that this is like 2007 and the expensive thing she wants is a stereo system.
Right.
It's very dated. He's like, I bought her all these CDs. You're like, oh boy.
And she can't play the CDs without the stereo.
Honestly.
It's so funny.
She was really obsessed with electronics. Like, that's the only.
I mean, I think it's just so obvious that she views him as someone who has a rich relative.
Yeah. I hope that in whatever world he exists in, that he's broken up with her, because
I know.
Yes, please.
That really upset me that we didn't get any conclusion about that. I mean,
you know what? Maybe once she got home, Nancy would talk to Ned and be like, "Hey, do you know about this psycho that Henry is dating?" And just like urge him to have a one-on-one talk.
Ned, if you call him later and you can tell, and Ned, it's so cute because he's like, oh, I'm so glad he has somebody, and she's like, no, actually, she's a horrible person, and he's like, oh no.
And the way that like Henry brings her up, he's just kind of like, I'm in love with this girl, but I don't know if she loves me back, and I'm like, are they even dating? Like, what is this girl? Is she just like leeching off? I feel so bad.
He's never experienced genuine connection with somebody.
And the part where he's like, probably like the only girlfriend I've ever had and probably will ever have. And I'm like,
you deserve so much better.
How old is she supposed to be? Like 20 something? You have so much time left.
Yeah.
Like,
I just need him and Ned to become BFFs and like let Ned
Me too.
help him figure out what a healthy relationship is like. Although like more early Ned, not her drama later Ned.
Right.
So dramatic.
True Ned. Actual Ned.
Yeah.
Ned.
Pre-captive curse Ned.
Cause he'd just be so great. Like if he get like you break up with a girlfriend, he'd bring over ice cream. Like he'd do all the cliched things. Like
And I just want them to bring Henry back. Just maybe like a phone contact. Just a little bit. Give me something. But I know that the new Her Interactive is like trying to detach from the old games, and I'm like,
disgusting.
It's fine.
Like you can't just forget about the 32 beautiful ones beforehand.
Bald is beautiful.
Bald is beautiful.
Bald and be free.
Yeah, I think they should bring him back because I miss him every day.
Honestly, what hurt me the most in this game was the ending. And I don't remember being so upset about it before, but like the fact that the alligator eats the skull and Henry does not get this one thing that his relative, like the symbol of his affection for him.
Literally, that makes me so angry. And like
that also would have given him so much money. Like
exactly. And the part where at the end where it's the photo of him like staring into the distance that Nancy somehow took. I just feel so bad because it's like he didn't get that closure, you know. And he just has to deal with that. And it's like for being like one of the main suspect, he didn't really get much closure. Like he didn't get closure with Summer, or he got a little bit with Bruno, but like not that much. So just like the ending was just like, well, they found the skull and it went away, and Renee was the bad guy, and now Nancy and Bess are gonna go around New Orleans by Henry,
and now Henry would be sad.
The part where they're like, Henry didn't want to go with them. It makes me so sad. Like, come on, come with us. Like, don't be sad. It's all good.
It really
I don't know. I just
so sad.
I feel bad. I feel like he didn't get the ending he deserved. You know.
Honestly, though, like. Listen, Ned, good intentions, but of all the people you should have sent to comfort a friend, it should not have been Nancy.
Not Nancy.
Okay, I will say this is the one thing that has always felt a little weird to me about this game. And it's like, I guess there's an argument just because Ned is that guy or whatever, but I don't know. It's like clearly Henry isn't like a friend of his.
Yeah,
I
it's really
mean,
weird.
they're
It
like
definitely is
acquaintances
weird.
more than
It would be
friends.
weird enough for Ned to go, but to send his girlfriend, just
Yeah,
like,
it's such a
like
weird extension of disbelief. It's like,
they could have just made them closer friends, and it would have been a little more realistic.
yeah, I
But
guess their logic though was like, then why? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe
yeah,
I
they
think they
just,
didn't want to make him not seem like a potential suspect. Like, they
yeah,
kind of do that with Katie
uh,
Firestone, too. Like, she's a friend of George, but, like, she doesn't really know her that well.
right.
yeah. I was thinking about that earlier. I was thinking when I played the game when I was little, and then when I was older, I never like suspected Henry like at all. Like not
Same.
once. Because like I'm like, did they make it so we weren't supposed to suspect him? Like what? There was no like motive. Like like what
Yeah, like why would he be looking for the skull? I don't.
exactly? And probably didn't even know about it or care.
Yeah, why would he
Um,
want his uncle dead? Since I mean, is that technically the crime that Nancy is mentally accusing somebody of throughout the plot?
I mean, I think she just is trying to figure out what's happening. Like, I kind of view it as that, where everything spirals out of that main goal, is to understand, like, what the hell is happening here, because it's some weird crap.
it actually was
Mhm.
really weird now that I think about it. Did Bruno like die of a heart attack
That's
because
what
he read a letter?
that's the weakest link for me that the game
Yeah,
really tries to force, is that
agreed.
We
really
couldn't
it
have
was
had
a
a little
it
murder
was a
in there. Come
quote
on.
unquote murder, even though it was an unintentional murder by this letter. And
Yeah, like Renee was like, I faked the letter and it killed him. It's like you could have, I don't know, maybe done it another way. Like
I mean, I don't
She
think
makes
she
it.
intended.
she didn't mean to kill him, but I mean like
Yeah.
I just mean her interactions could have done this another way because it's a little weird.
Yeah, they definitely could have explained his death better. Yeah, I agree with you guys. I thought about that on this playthrough. I was like, I don't really buy that he was so attached to the idea of this being real that he hadn't considered the alternative, like to the point where he had a heart attack and died.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Like and
know.
leaving his whole like estate with all of his like little collectibles and uh, he must have liked the other stuff there too. Like why was this crystal skull like such a big deal? He must have thought like maybe this isn't real. I'm getting it checked, you know. You kind of have to expect maybe there's a 50% chance that it's fake, you know, like
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know. I could still see it. I think the game really pushes that it's a murder because it was like foul play kind of
Yeah.
system, and I'm like, I don't buy in that, especially because it's supposed to be something of an immortality, and like at the end of the day, that's still not an intentional
yeah.
murder.
Yeah, they're
Right.
like technically Renee didn't really like commit any crimes until the end.
Like the
Like
thing
when
that
she
we
was
talked about.
ready to kill Nancy, you know.
I know
She,
Nancy
I mean,
even says that in her ending letter.
Yeah, she's like, she may not have meant to kill Bruno, but she sure
She's
as hell meant to kill me.
yes.
Renee saw her opportunity and she was like, okay, sorry though, as like a tangent, because we're getting to like where I'm realizing all the little pieces here is,
Mhm.
listen, Bruno, buddy, there were way too many things that you did to your poor nephew. So you were planning, first off, post death, that like he was gonna go on this scavenger hunt, like
Oh.
all crying through the tears, whatever. NBD, he finds the skull, and then it's just a last minute funsy surprise. You're gonna lock him in a crypt and then make him
Make him
solve his way out by doing
God.
matching puzzles.
little
Like,
magic
you know how
puzzles that you
traumatic
can
that
only
would be?
see in the lightning flash.
Honestly, though, I hate that too. That's another thing that definitely.
Bruno was insane.
I mean, a matching game to get out of a
Yeah.
crypt. Really? How did
Some
that
of-
even
okay, that's like
work?
That's one of the only puzzles that doesn't really make that much sense to me because I think that the puzzles sort of make sense because he's like this old eccentric dude that has all this weird collectible stuff in his attic and stuff. So like some of the puzzles make sense, and the fact that he like hit all those eyeballs and stuff, it's like yeah, this guy's a weirdo. So maybe he planned this whole thing and he just wasn't in the right headspace. I thought, oh my nephew's gonna love this.
Yeah, there were a couple.
Honestly, it's so much better than Nancy's the one that solved it because I don't think Henry could have handled it.
No, and she definitely was ready to. She's done weird stuff before.
Yeah.
I kind of wish we met Bruno at one point just to see what he was like.
Okay, honestly, my biggest beef with this entire game is that there was not a photo album of Bruno wearing every single one of these glass eyes.
Yes!
Oh my god, they
oh
should
my
have
god.
done that.
They definitely should have.
Like this is me and my favorite glass eye. This is me and my new glass eye. Like little selfies here.
God, you know what's so weird is that when I think about Bruno Bolet, I don't even think about the fact that he's missing an eye. Like
Me neither.
It doesn't register for me. Even though the whole point of the game is collecting glass eyes that he wore, Henry specifically says that he wore them interchangeably.
Again.
But I just never.
Are they
This
clean?
is the one he was wearing and he died.
Are they clean?
Are they?
Listen, this thought haunted me the entire playthrough. So for everyone there who was like, "Why would you put this in my head?" I was living with it. Now you all have to too.
Oh god. She's just carrying around like 30 dirty eyeballs in her back.
Like.
That's
so gross. Was he
so
just walking
gross.
around the house and be like, you know what? I'm feeling like let's pop this one out and stick it to the grandfather clock today.
Yeah.
Oh,
like,
God.
I was gonna say that. That's so bad. Let's put this one in my dummy. Like, what?
Did he just have him with him in like his pocket? He was like, "We'll pop that one out. Time to put another one in."
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the logistics of like how he planned all this. Like, he just sat down one day, was like, I'm gonna make this whole freaking scavenger hunt with my eyeballs. Let's put one in the like the skee ball machine, like the gumball. Let me just say, I am not over the fact that Nancy ate that old gumball. Like,
yes!
And the fact that she drank that green stuff at the beginning. Like, Nancy, do you have no self-preservation? Like,
oh, I did not drink the green stuff.
I don't drink the green stuff. I've done it before, but
I've always made her do it. Because I get so surprised that she actually drinks it.
Like, I didn't know she did. I literally lived in denial and thought that she would just refuse it automatically, even if she accepted that Henry would cut in.
She chugs it in one go.
Yeah, man. She drinks it. I mean, it's still in the glass afterwards, but the one thing I remember from choosing that option, though, is, like, the weirdly... God, this is gonna make me sound really gross.
But, no, say it. It's
but
okay.
for some reason, like, I liked the SFX they used, just the slurping sound when she drinks it.
Oh my god.
I don't know why.
That's attention to detail, like...
Yeah, I guess.
I'm just surprised there's not as many ways to die in this game as I thought there were. Like, could she have died when she ate the bad gumball? Like, give me more funny deaths, you know? That's what I've been going through, like, all the Nancy Drew second chances and trying to find my favorite ones, and it's like some of the games have like none. It's like
I was gonna say, did this one have any?
It had the alligator. I think that's like the only one. Or like, I don't know, not getting out in time, maybe.
Huh.
Some of them have so many deaths, and it's like around every corner. I'm like, oh, like, how do I avoid this second chance? But this one, it's like nothing.
I'm not.
Maybe that's why it feels more realistic.
I'm not somebody who really plays around with second chances anyway.
I try not to, but like, because I've already seen most of them, but I just find some funny. Some of them I feel bad though, like the really dark ones, like where she drowns. I don't like those.
Or the freaking axe room in Waverly Academy.
That's weird. And some of them they like make it last too long. Like I can hear her drowning. I'm not it.
Like, yeah, like cut that off quick.
Like they didn't need, or like the ones where it was like my favorite one is the one in Ghost Oxyman Lake where she goes out on the boat and it explodes and then the newspaper comes up and it's like teen detective dies in boating accident. It's like, oh my god, it's so dark. I love it though. I think the only death is the alligator though. It's wild.
That is wild. I just want to quickly, we don't have to talk on it for long, but I just want to establish how insanely creepy Dr. Buford is. In this
I was
game.
seeing discourse about this on Tumblr, and people were like, I didn't find him that creepy. No, maybe I didn't when I was little, but
Yeah,
coming
I
back
didn't.
now, because I didn't understand that. I didn't pick up on it, obviously. But
Right.
then now playing again, Bess is just like, and I'm like, girl, if that was me, I'd be really creeped out.
Yes, it makes me so mad that they kept having her do the giggle thing. Like, clearly
Yeah,
the
and it's like,
giggle was a separate sound file anyway, so they could have just left it out. Like,
yeah, and the thing is, it's like, maybe I would have let one slide, you're just a nice old man, but he did like 3 pickup lines, and I'm like,
yes, or more.
you are old. I'm a teenage girl. Please back off. No
I
more.
know it's just creepy in general. Like, even if his intentions are not like in a, I'm literally
Yeah,
sitting
and
here
it's
hitting
still
on,
bad. It's still
but
bad.
it's still just not appropriate and it's not comfortable at all.
Yeah, and I do think it's interesting as kind of a dated piece because
Mhm.
those kind of I don't think as many of those kind of conversations were happening when the game came out.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm sure again it's just kind of an oversight that they're like, "Oh, a sweet old man." Although still, like it's interesting that a female kind of mostly driven company a lot of the time would
Yeah.
view it that creepy angle of
Yeah.
it. And I agree with you, Katie. I think the giggle is what makes me the most uncomfortable
Oh
because it's
yeah.
one thing to have like this character and kind of have it give off creepy vibes. It's another thing to almost excuse and justify it as okay.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, because I
Right.
mean, like, I was thinking about how, like, in Secrets Can Kill, like, that one dude is always, like, trying to do pickup lines on you, and you could be like, no, stop, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then, like, later down the line, you have no choice. You just have to hear him.
Even
Like,
even Bess's notebook is very like, oh, he seems like a really nice guy. I wouldn't do anything. I'm not saying that just because he was said some nice things about me. Like whatever is that's how the whole
Mm.
thing is written, and it's just really cringy, and you're like,
not feeling it. Not feeling it.
And I can
Yikes.
definitely see why, again, when you first play it, not thinking anything of it, especially if you have, like, I don't know, we had a lot of older neighbors growing up that would say, like, things that were definitely not meant to be creepy. I
Mhm.
think this one, especially, though, because it's, like, image things and
Mhm.
it's just, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, like, when you're little, you just don't pick up on those things.
Right.
So, like,
Exactly.
And yeah, because I feel like when you're young, you focus more on like the tone of somebody's voice rather than the words that they're saying.
yeah. Yeah, or the, um, nope, I can't think of it. No, you go.
Yeah, like no, I also had no problem with it when I was younger because I was what, like 11. I mean, I wasn't really thinking about it in that way. And again, I think it's mostly the fact that Bess giggles like
Mm-hmm.
like she likes it, and
Yeah.
in combination with the fact that it's just over and over and over and over
Yeah.
again.
Oh my god.
Just like
Yeah.
he barely says like 3 sentences without throwing another flirt
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even if it's not intended to be flirts, that is clearly how it comes across.
Yeah.
And it's just not. Ugh.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I
Again with
totally
the
agree.
with seeing it now so much later, like 13 years later, it's like it's totally different now that it might have been in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Which is it's good to look back on the older games and seeing like the problems that they had that they thought that you could get away with then, but now it's like totally different because of like cultural changes. I like that. I like that seeing that things have changed a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It still is, again, though, even if it not being something that was as commonly discussed and talked about, those kind of
Mhm.
microaggressions, it's still very bizarre that,
Yeah.
especially with the giggling, that was a choice that they went with. Because I totally agree with you, Katie. It's this excusing of it as like, oh, this is like, I like this kind of a
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. It's not
'Cause-
even like an uncomfortable giggle. It's like straight up like, oh, it's so funny, this old
and
guy.
it could have been a character choice because for Bess to be like, oh, she's flirty and you're playing as her in the
And
game,
she likes attention, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it does not read well, and especially yeah, it's just interesting. It's definitely a choice, and it also for me is very weird. The other thing that I really don't like about him is he gets progressively creepier, in my opinion, when you find out he's like the leader of the secret underground
Yeah.
Oh,
society
really?
that you don't know anything about, and like what the society does is never explained to you at all. Um, And then yet at the
Yeah.
and he also tells you that he, like, knocked Nancy out, and he says he's no longer interested in finding the skull, but, like, do you really believe him? And then they just are like, "You know what? With all this information, you seem like a trustable, reliable person we'd like to give a tour of the city for us. Please
Yeah,
join
that
us
was
on our
really
travels."
weird. That was really weird.
Yeah, to be fair, Bess did bring up the point of like, oh my god, what if he was lying? Like, what if he does? Like, what if he
Yeah.
does still want the skull?
Just to make you think, oh, he might be the culprit,
Yeah,
Oh,
but
yeah.
yeah,
I mean more so after. Like,
right.
Nancy reinforces that same argument that he, like, doesn't care about it, and it's like, okay, maybe, but at the same time, you don't know what he's doing in his free time. All we know about him is that he knocked you out, was thinking about stealing a skull later down the line.
From
And
his friend. Like, it's really
yeah,
weird.
from his friend, and not only that, but from betraying his friend's best, like, dying wish for
Yeah,
his
exactly.
nephew who has nothing in this world, and also the fact that he runs the secret underground skeleton crew, and they're just like,
Right.
yeah, show us the
Totally.
city.
This is
Let's
fine.
be best friends. It's a little weird, but
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but however, this character is definitely underappreciated. But shout out to my man Lamont.
Oh,
he's
what
great.
a man.
This guy, I love
I
him.
feel so bad for torturing him through this game.
I know he's
Bess
just
feels
out
bad,
here.
I feel bad, but we just have to do it.
He's
I wish
out-
we could work together. Like,
Me too. Like, you know, he's
I
just
feel
out
like-
here running his shop, trying to make a buck.
I also
his
never
thing.
suspected him either. I didn't
Right.
really suspect anyone in this game. I mean,
That's-
maybe Dr. Buford, but like,
Yeah, that's another thing I thought of earlier, which is I feel like, you know, you said you never suspected Henry, but I feel like Lamont, if anything, is the character that there is literally like nothing to incriminate him whatsoever.
nothing.
Like
Absolutely not.
Like not even proximity to the Bolet house.
He just, the only thing is that he just wanted some like stuff for his shop, so he went to the funeral. Like, that was it.
Yeah, and like he bought a box of stuff from Henry, but what is that? Like, it's just so vague.
Yeah.
Well,
I feel like
I think that does go back to this plot overall as a whole, right? With so many other mysteries, you're there to figure out who is causing a particular thing. But unlike all of those, where they're trying to make everyone seem incriminating to try and figure out which one it actually was, like digging through all of the given information,
Ooh,
again, this is more about uncovering what's happening just in general.
you're
so-
right.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not really about finding like the culprit. It's just understanding what the context, like what is happening in this household, because something is up, and so
Yeah.
it makes more sense for everything to be a lot more vague.
Oh my god,
Yeah,
you're
that makes it, the
completely
game
right.
feel. That's why the game feels so different than some of the other ones. It's just like a lot more realistic, and there's some of the other games, they pile so hard on like the red herrings and like trying to make you think it's this person, but this game didn't do that like at all.
Mhm.
Yeah, most of
It
the
was just
other
kinda like,
games... Sorry.
It was very realistic, where it's like, here's the evidence, here's the circumstances, just go crazy and figure it out at the end. But it didn't feel like it was like some big conspiracy against some specific people, you know?
Right, like most of the other games are literal like whodunits, but
Mhm.
this one is more just like what happened, and
Yeah.
it's a lot more nuanced and layered than most of the others.
It feels
It's
more
definitely-
mature than some of them.
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
it's like a lot less like, I don't know. It just feels more real.
It's just a totally subversion of a lot of their standard go-to structures, which I think is really interesting. And it
Mhm.
makes it stand out as definitely a different, unique style of the game.
Yes, you know, like talking about this game is really like getting me hyped on it. I'm like realizing how good this game is. Like just objectively, not even just as a Nancy Drew game, but it's just so well executed as a whole.
And I also, it was interesting because one of the things that threw me off while I was playing was noticing that a lot of things aren't clickable from the get-go, right? You're not allowed to zoom in on certain things, like even
Yeah.
the bookshelf where the crystal
I
skull
was thinking
book
that.
is.
I was thinking that.
And it confused me as someone who is like used to the typical her interactive structure of how these games usually get played. But it
Right.
makes sense in the context of this setup, right? Because they don't want you to discover things
Yeah.
too quickly.
Also,
Yeah.
But it
Also,
doesn't
like,
feel forced, right?
in
Because you're like, "Oh, I guess this is just something I'm not allowed to click on." And so
Yeah.
later when it happens and there always is something that, like, draws you to its attention, like Iggy jumping
mhm.
out of the bookshelf, which then makes you allow it, it still doesn't feel like this forced linearity because it works out. It only feels forced when you're playing it a second time and know what to expect.
Yeah, because in
Yes.
some of the other games, it's kind of like you can literally poke at everything and then something happens, and it's like, that, I mean, it kind of makes sense for Nancy because we see her as a character that's very nosy and she pokes at things. But, like, in this game, it's like you kind of have to be drawn to something. Like, you have to have some sort of, like, idea about what you're doing before you do it, Because why would you need to look at the um bookshelf or you actually, like, get drawn to it, or like what's another thing, the
Well,
secret passageway, you wouldn't know to click on that or be anywhere around that unless you, like,
yes.
had an idea.
They really disguised the secret passageway door super well in this game. Like, it's so
I
satisfying to
know.
watch
I
it pop
totally forgot
open.
about it when I was replaying. I totally forgot, like, last time, um that was even a part of it, because I remembered the dummy in one game and I was, like, really scared for it, and then when I saw that there's a secret passageway, I was like, oh god, it's coming. But, like,
Yes.
that's how well it was hidden because I just totally forgot about it.
Yes. And another note I wanted to make about the bookshelf thing, though, is that I actually remember the first time I played this game, that shelf did stand out to me because Iggy's like already on top of it.
Mhm.
And
Hmm.
so I remember going into the study and I was like, why can't I click on this? This looks like something that I should be able to explore. And so I almost viewed it as kind of like an annoying limitation. But then,
Mhm.
I kept playing the game and eventually I could click on it. And it was that much more exciting when the
Mhm.
option to go there actually, was
Hmm.
unlocked because I was like, oh, good, I wanted to look at this.
Same with the
Yeah.
cemetery. If you're walking around and you're, like, going all these different places, I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? And then it
Mm-hmm.
makes sense later when you're doing the puzzle that you can actually, like, go to certain graves and look at them.
All right, I just want to say this game is one of the ones where, for some reason, I just have so many of the puzzle answers like ingrained into my memory. I
Me
don't know
too.
why, but like I will never in my life forget Bazalupa di Muka ever.
That's perfect. I love
And
that.
I
Katie's out
also
here performing hoodoo on everybody. You didn't
Oh,
know
we
that?
weren't supposed to say it. It's a
Yeah,
curse.
she said it. You're all cursed.
oh no.
It's gonna make your curse worse. So sorry.
There
Immediately
was
gets kicked out of the server.
there was definitely another puzzle answer that I have always remembered from that game, but I can't think of what it was. But the
Mine
other
is
one too
constant snoring.
Oh,
is
constant
I was
snoring.
gonna say the entire cemetery
All of them.
list. I literally just I
Kneel
read the
down.
prompt and I'm like, okay, just type in the name because I know it. like it's crazy.
I don't know what it is about. I love this puzzle as a concept. Like, I think it's so unique and so well
Mm-hmm.
thought out and just
Agreed.
absolutely impressive and inventive.
Hmm.
But I don't have them memorized. I have like a couple of them memorized, and then the rest I have to like flip through the pages, and I can never figure out one or two of them, and I will spend hours
Oh no.
looking. And this time it was Rose Winter Spring, and I'm still angry about it because I don't agree with that as like
I
a
still
pun
don't
name.
either. I still don't
I
either.
still don't understand that
That's
one.
the one that I just don't get.
Like, I get it, it's a rose, I think, bloomed in winter and then was cut in spring, so it's the opposite, but that's not really a pun. Those are just 3 related names. You needed to do
Right.
something better with that for that to work.
Do better.
My
I have strong anger. Listen, I spent too
I
long.
I agree. I agree. My favorite one is Polyester Givens because that just sounds like a good name.
It's
Like,
so good.
For
I
some
love it.
reason, my favorite has always been My Remains.
My Remains is one too. I remember that one.
It's
Yeah.
so
Myra
good.
also gave me a really hard time today, but when I read it, I had to look up a spoiler for it, but when I read it, I was like, yeah, never mind. I don't know how I missed that. I will say my frustration with that puzzle is I think there's too many pages in the book.
Agreed. I
Yes. Oh my
agree.
god.
Because you have to say the names out loud, and I think it's a very intentionally designed that the non-names are, like, really clunky and, different and, like, are jam-packed full of, like, these strange letters, but when you're trying to say everything out loud and, like, if you just happen to slip over one and then you have, like, 50 more names to read, it's just way too time-consuming and
Yeah.
Yeah.
frustrating.
And I just am so impatient, so whenever I do that, I'm just, like, scanning over it, and I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm just gonna go cheat because I don't care." And
Mm-hmm.
some of them I just don't remember if I haven't played it for long enough, you know? I love all the puzzles in this, to be honest, like, the
Agreed.
only one I don't like is the one in the table because I just always forget how to do it. Like,
The one
one of
in
the first ones.
the marble one in the table is so hard on senior. I remember
It
spending
definitely
like a long time on it the last time I played on the hard
it
level.
definitely is like a thinking puzzle. I thought I was gonna zoom through it, and it took me. I had to really sit through and think out what I was doing,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah, I'm not
appreciated
smart
it.
enough for that.
Yeah, I
Like I
appreciate that
enjoyed
one
it,
as well. The only
and
one,
really,
sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I mean, I was gonna
I,
change and talk about a different
oh,
puzzle.
No, you go.
I
No, you go.
I was just gonna say, I think really for me, it's once you figure out that the one marble needs to roll to the left to like click it up like there's one particular marble that you
Yes.
and once you because I really was like I don't understand how I'm gonna get this into position, and once that clicks, I think the rest of it comes into place really
Yes.
relatively quickly. But figuring out that initial first move takes a really long time
I
to
agree.
put together.
Yes, I totally know what you're talking about. Like
Yeah.
specifically what you're talking about.
Yes, and it was definitely one of those things where I was like, I just need to jump in there and move around, which was like contrary to what I usually want to do because I want to like put it all, write it down, and solve it. But I just
Yep.
had to kind of play around. But I appreciated it. Like I really enjoy a lot of them. These puzzles, they're
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
they're well thought out. They require thinking, but they're not too intricate that I get frustrated with them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Oh my god,
The
that's
only
a good
one
balance. A good balance.
agreed. The only one that pisses me off still to this day are the buzzard statues because I just do not understand the logic behind it. They keep
I'm gonna be
saying it's
honest, I've
something
never
about
done that without cheats. Like, I just
that's what
don't.
I mean. Like, and
I don't
Okay,
I've
get it.
tried. People
okay.
are like, you know by the sound that it makes, but that doesn't help because you still
So
don't know what each one is gonna do
I'm stupid. Like,
ahead
So
of
sorry.
time.
I wrote it down this time. I like went through and figured this out because I think I've done it always by looking at the statue every time. But so I went through and I was like I want to figure out explicitly what each lever does. So by the sound it makes, it's 2 clicks for every single one of the feathers on the head. The first click is to tell you that it's on that particular feather, and the second click tells you whether or not it's moved up, down, or hasn't changed.
Right. Like
So
I know
if
that
it's
much.
okay, if it moves up, it plays a higher pitched sound to
Hmm.
indicate that it's moving up. If it moves down, it plays a lower pitched sound.
Ooh.
Right.
And so that's how you figure out which one is which. You can what I did was I went through each of the like heads to figure out which ones they moved up and down, wrote that all out, and then figured out the solution from there. But
Ugh.
I agree with you that I don't think it does any like I think they just want you to figure out that like you don't need to keep turning around and looking because they're consistent. Um, because you'd only did it. I did it in like I think 4 moves is the
The thing is,
solution.
like, yeah, I kind of did that once before too because I read somewhere that the sounds were related. Um, and so I figured out like how the sounds work, and I did the same thing too, where I pulled on each one individually to see how it affected them. But it still did not help me solve the puzzle any faster because I just it's
So the
still
other
ugh.
thing you have to think of, and this is where I could see where you could get frustrated, is the ones that are going to pull it down. You can't pull it down unless the feather is already up. So to test which levers move the things down, you have to put the feathers up first and then try each of the 4 of them over
Oh,
again.
ew.
So right, so like the first lever lifts the third feather, but it brings down the fifth and the sixth feather, but you won't know that if you only like lift the first head once because the fifth and the sixth feather are currently down. So it can't pull them any further down.
Yeah.
And the sound only plays when it actually moves the feather up or down.
Because there's that, and then there's also the variable though of you also have to know how many positions there are for the
Yeah, my
feathers.
frustration is not knowing how high up and how far down the feathers are. Like I don't like that drawing. I think they needed to tell you whether or not it was up by 2 or up by 1.
Mm-hmm. I just don't
Um,
think it's a very intuitive puzzle.
yeah, I don't know. I think that one really works best. Like solve what the things are doing and then solve it on paper rather than try and play with it up. Because I think you're right. You would go crazy trying to just like pull the heads randomly to figure out what's doing what.
Ugh.
I'm not smart enough for that. All of that just went right over my head.
Sorry, I know that was a really
No,
I just spent a really long time today
y-
piecing
good for
together
you.
which
Like
each head did.
Yeah,
the fact that
honestly,
you can explain that, good for you. Like
honestly
I've never
though.
even tried.
But I totally agree. I hate the diagram because I don't think that is super intuitive, and I think they try to imply that the sound is more useful than it is, when really it's just to kind of help you understand what's. I think what they mean by it is that you can, by jotting down, keep track of what's been moved without
Hmm.
having to keep turning around. But I don't think it's worth solving it that way. I really, I think the best way is to figure out what each thing is, but that's it's a long process. So I don't blame you for
Mhm.
getting frustrated. And I totally agree that what's written in the book is not super helpful.
Yeah.
I think all the other puzzles are pretty solid though, except the Hamlet one kind of irritates me for some reason more
Well,
than most of those kinds of puzzles where you have to count the letters and words and stuff. I don't know
Mhm.
it's
why that one is just worse to me.
it's weird that they tell you that it's Hamlet. And I also was frustrated because I was playing his best and asked Nancy for a hint, and Nancy just told me how to solve the whole puzzle. And I was like, "Excuse
Oh
you,
yeah.
that's not what
Yeah,
a hint is."
right? Yeah, no, I
I like
agree.
the one.
Especially when I was younger, like the fact that it said Hamlet just confused the heck out of me.
Yeah.
Like seeing the word Hamlet written there, I immediately assumed because where otherwise I would have literally thought that it was a counting the words and the letters puzzle
Mhm.
because it said Hamlet specifically. That to me made me rule it out.
It would have been one thing, I think, if you had, referred to things from Hamlet in the letter, which maybe there were and I'm just not remembering it, but I didn't see it that way. I don't remember anyone particular any characters from Hamlet standing out, and if you're gonna do that, you also need to make another reference to something about Hamlet earlier.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
it just felt so random and out of place.
Mhm.
I like the puzzle in Renee's room, like the little box. I like that one. Like you have to get all
Oh,
the shapes.
listen, my short-term memory is garbage. I hate
Mine
that.
is too,
So,
Katie.
I don't hate it actually, but it takes me longer than it probably should because I cannot ever
My
I
thing
what
is,
remember.
I did was I just wrote them all down and I drew a little diagram so I could do it all at once. But
I
See,
thought
also
about
I'm
that.
lazy when I play the games. I don't have the dedication to make charts and diagrams to solve puzzles. I really
I
don't.
just
Yeah.
draw really shitty doodles, honestly. Like my drawings are so bad in here, but they help.
Yeah, but honestly, I thought about it. I was like, I could make my life so much easier if I literally just wrote down each of these pictures. And I
Yeah.
said, I'm not about that life.
No, you're just gonna wing it.
And then spent 30 more minutes than I needed to, clicking them in and then I'd be like, wait, which one was the first one that I'm supposed to click to?
I love
Because
looking
my
through
memory is garbage
I
too.
love looking through my journal and seeing different drawings that I've done for each game and being like, oh, that one for that puzzle, yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's at least 3 puzzles in every game that I just don't try. I'm like, nope, not gonna do it.
Not
I'm not
today.
smart enough for that. Especially because when I
For
was little, I only played with the with walkthroughs. I just didn't try at all. I was like, nope, I'm just here for looking at pretty things.
That's funny. I used the UHS hints a lot because I didn't want
I
outright walkthroughs, but
that's a good idea. I always use the Game Boomers one.
I got
Yeah, I went
frustrated
on a
really easily.
phase where I was a Game Boomers person. It was my friend introduced that world to me, and I was like,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, it makes it so much easier. And then
The
I would
thing is,
always regret it.
when I played the games for the first time, my dad printed them out for me because that's how old they are. And so I had all the printouts and everything. I was like, oh, this is so helpful. So then I
Aww,
started using them online for the later games too, and I just
that's
never
so
gave up.
cute.
I can tell you though what turned me off of walkthroughs for a really long time was when I was playing the haunted carousel for the first time, and they spoiled the culprit for me in the walkthrough at the end.
Really?
What?
Yeah, they were like, and then he's gonna walk through, and they explicitly said his name and everything. I was like,
What? Usually they'll
what?
just say the culprit.
Nope.
Right.
Oh my
I
god.
yeah, I was
Spoilers.
horrified. I was so upset.
Aw, that's so
Yeah.
annoying.
Mhm.
That
It's
sucks.
okay. So I don't really use them all that much. I try not to use them anymore. I much prefer doing it on my own. But there are
Yeah,
things that I get frustrated with at
I've been
times.
trying to do that now that I'm older to just try on my own, as best as I can.
Yeah.
Still on junior mode because I'm not good enough for no hints.
Oh, the other puzzle answer that I have ingrained into my memory is the Hamlet one, the Leben und Todd. I will never forget.
Okay. One of the things that makes me really upset about that puzzle is that the letters will spell Bruno Volet, and that's not the solution. Like, those
Oh my
are the
God.
exact letters available to you
Oh,
on the...
wow.
That's so annoying.
Interesting.
Yes. And I so when I started out, I was like, okay, what kind of things can we spell? I was like, oh, Bolet, Bruno Bolet, and like other variations of things.
Wait, which puzzle was this? I still can't picture it in my head.
The Hamlet one. So the lockbox for the crystal skull that you get in...
Oh.
Yeah.
I feel like that's another one that I just cheat through.
Speaking of which, that's another like shake up to the usual plot progression that I thought was super interesting, is the fact that the crystal skull is kind of like, it's the title thing of this game. And yet Nancy isn't even the person who first finds out about it, because it's Bess.
Yes.
Is the first time that the player has any sort of knowledge about a crystal skull existing. I mean, outside of the name of the game, obviously, but I just thought that was super, super interesting that you start out the game and you're investigating a completely different mystery. And it's not until you play as Bess for the first time, not even as Nancy, that
That's really
you
cool.
find out that a crystal skull even exists.
It goes back kind of to that whole like idea, honestly, of legends in the first place. Like, they kind of just float around. There's not a whole lot of substance to them most of the time. You hear about them, especially in kind of towns like that where it's so ingrained. I feel like a lot of the times in New Orleans, especially with some of their more spooky elements. So it kind of makes sense where it's like you kind of get vague whisperings of it. And then from there it would kind of delve more as Nancy's like, ooh, that could be interesting. Let's look into it. But yeah, I totally agree. It's definitely a totally different situation than what you're used to.
Right.
How do you feel about Professor Hotchkiss in this game?
It
An
makes
icon.
me really sad.
I know you said this earlier, Katie, about Tomb of the Lost Queen too.
I remember this, yeah.
I honestly feel like that's in character for her. Like, I do agree that it's much more intense and ramped up compared to Treasure Royal Tower, but at the same time, I still feel like she comes across very intelligent. And she just has these other, like, weird, very Hotchkiss phrases that are thrown in, but that's like, very much on brand for how she was in Treasure Royal Tower, especially, like, when you just eavesdrop on her in her room. And I will say, I think part of it for me is, like, I legitimately had a teacher that was this way, like, that she reminds me so much of Professor Hotchkiss because all of her metaphors were food related. Like, really intelligent, really smart woman, but would go on, like, rampages instead about, like, we'd be describing something. At one point, she taught a science class, even though she was a history professor.
Oh my God.
And she went
That's so funny.
on, like, the shape of a cell, and she was like, the nucleus looks like a little snowball, or maybe one of those candy snowballs that's covered in sugar. Oh, I was baking a cake the other day, and I discovered this, like, new recipe at the store, and, like, just total tangent, like, really long. Or, like, your recipe is kept at a proper temperature, like an oven baking a turkey. You don't want it to get too hot or too cold, because then the turkey won't come out right. And, like, instead, but she was like, just imagine, like, the most delicious turkey you've ever, like, it was just very over the top and dramatic, and I think she reminds me a lot of that, and, like, so for me, it's more believable. It doesn't seem as caricature-y as I think it might for other people.
Yeah, because you have personal experience, you know.
And I will say, though, I think her intelligence is more intact in this one than in Tomb of the Lost Queen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because she does still display, like, a lot of knowledge for you. But, and you know, I think another thing, too, is that it's at least kind of sort of related to her French history major. I mean, it's not, but at the same time, there's more of a thread between this and the fact that she's a scholar of French history specifically. Like, there's more of a thread there than there is between the ancient Egyptians.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, again, like, you're a historian. I'm sure you're going to, like, have a broader knowledge base than just your one area of expertise, but...
She wrote a whole book about the crystal skulls.
I mean, yeah. Again, I do agree with you, especially with like the whole academia thing. It does kind of check out a little bit in both cases, just because most of the Egyptian artifacts and like our knowledge comes from that French time period that she was studying. Because the French are the people who, under Napoleon, found and uncovered most of the artifacts that we have today. A lot of them, at least, and so a lot of the French studying was actually done, or a lot of the Egyptian studying was done by the French during that time
Mm.
period. So like I can see where her interactive might have been like, oh, it's a good time for her to come back, but like they don't give you any context. And even with that
Yeah.
like background, it still doesn't make sense why a French historian would be studying something like like
Yeah.
without that French tie. Like it would make sense for her to be writing a book about the French discoveries after the Rosetta Stone was uncovered
Yeah.
during the time like that would make sense, but they don't do that
Yeah,
at
it
all.
seems like with her interactive, they just want to like they want an excuse. Like they need
Right.
they need someone to explain something historian like, you know. So they just bring her back and suddenly make her an expert on this other
Yeah.
stuff, and it's like they couldn't have just made a new character, but whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
No, I
nice to see
totally
older
agree.
characters, but you know.
And it
Yeah.
probably has to do with like voice actress too availability.
That
and,
yeah,
like,
I was
oh,
gonna
we have
say
an
that.
opportunity to bring someone back and like she's around and
I was
Right.
gonna say that they've reused a lot of voice actors, so they only have like a little pool of people, so it makes sense that they just want to use their contacts.
Yeah.
And I totally agree too that the intelligence is a lot more here. I think for the Tomb of the Lost Queen irritates me in the fact that she's asking Nancy for like things that Nancy could like just be making up on the fly.
Exactly.
And like it's not a good representation of how
And
research
they
is
just
conducted. And
yeah, like they really just they completely canceled out every aspect of her layered personality in Tomb of the Lost Queen just in favor of the wackiness. And I just hate what it did. It feels like because she
feels
was
like it's dirtying her image.
Yes, like she was a very intelligent, like well-rounded woman in Royal Tower, and some of that is still intact even in Crystal Skull here.
Yeah, I think
it's
it comes across better here.
Yeah, exactly. But for Lost Queen, they just like completely tossed that out the window in favor of this like hollow caricature who's just there to give you the information you need and to be wacky and funny and say weird things, you know?
Yeah.
So that's really what makes me sad.
I think like for me too, but a big part of her characterization is the idea that she is someone who just wants to share things with you, and so like you either comes out as like random rant about something that she's thinking of, or it's a like intense historical rant that she's like, this is so interesting, let me share it with you.
Right.
And in that you get the, like you were saying, this kind of layered, really intelligent woman who just is super exuberant and like has all of these things to like say, and so in there like the wackiness works out, and I think there's a much better balance in this game than definitely in the Tomb of the Lost Queen, where it's just weird. Like Tomb of the Lost Queen feels very forced.
Yeah, definitely.
Agreed. But you know, speaking of bizarre old women, I don't know if this is gonna make any sense to anybody else, but on this playthrough, Renee really like stood out to me as being like again, I don't even know if this is gonna make sense, but she feels kind of realistic to me. Just something with the way that she looks and her voice, and I don't know what it is. She felt like she could be a real person to me.
Yeah, I get that. Also, I'm just trying to think of like when else has her interactive like made old ladies. Like they're like in Blackmore Manor, she's kind of old.
The main ones that come to mind are Takai in Water's Edge, and then Renata in Captive Curse.
They have so many old men in these games, like so many. I'm just thinking now about all the old men, all the old bald men. But yeah, she does seem very realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing I noticed playing this time is how one of the glass eyes is in that Eye of the Beholder book, which is sitting right there on the bookshelf in view of the zooming lens in the secret passageway. And I'm just like, how easy would it be for somebody to just move the book?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is. I'm like, well, the first time I saw the zoom in thing, I'm like, what is this supposed to be? Like, this doesn't make any sense.
Like, did he leave specific instructions not to touch that bookshelf, or like how was he? going to
Especially 'cause
prevent
Henry
anyone from
was
picking up
supposed
the
to-
book and moving it.
Yeah, especially Henry was supposed to like move everything in general to like get a list of everything that Bruno owned. So it's like,
Yeah.
what was like gonna stop him from moving that? How was
I
what if these little things that would have messed up the whole scavenger hunt? You know, it's funny.
Another
Okay.
super random thing that I noticed, not this playthrough, I actually noticed this a very, very long time ago, but I'm pretty sure that they reused Tino Balducci's character model as Bruno Bolet in the photo.
I need to see that.
I'm like
I need to see that.
pretty sure. It's like
Is
the
this in
same-
the attic?
It's in the secret passageway, and it's like the framed photo of like Bruno being initiated into the Jolly Roger crew or whatever.
Huh.
And it's just you only see his back, but he has like the same like combed black neat tidy hair with a leather jacket, and I'm just like, that is definitely the Tino model.
This is
Honestly, I
tragic.
wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised.
Another
I'm pretty
opportunity for
sure.
us to have seen him with his eyeball, and we were denied.
I know.
Denied.
Honestly,
That's such a big point of his character, and we didn't even get to see his face
Because they
with the
don't
eyeball.
want you to think too much about it.
We see
Like,
him
we
as
are going
a-
to gloss over the fact that these eyes were all once worn by him.
Yeah, who cares? It's fine.
Nancy thinks it's cool, so.
We saw him as a child with his dog.
Oh
but
yeah.
That's
He
true.
hardly had a glass eye in that photo.
How did he like lose an eye again? Does anyone
No
know?
idea. I don't think they tell
Things
you.
they also aren't going to tell us, yeah.
We need to make like a headcanon over that. Like, how did he lose his eye? He had enough time to collect all those eyeballs, so it must have been a long time ago.
Right?
Yeah. Unrelatedly, but kind of, I just think it fits really well that he was a dentist. Something about dentists overall. Like, I feel like I could
Yeah.
see a creepy dentist. Like, creepy,
Yeah.
eccentric dentist.
Yes.
100%.
Like, that works for me. Not in a
Yeah.
good way.
Something
really
about the
does.
dentist aesthetic is like solid here.
Old
Like-
male dentists are just like, that's like red flags everywhere. Like,
Like, especially with the teeth bookshelf.
I
does
really
that?
like that puzzle. I think it's a cool puzzle.
The only thing that frustrates me is the use of left and right as a patient's left versus a doctor's
oh,
left.
yeah, I never
Yeah,
thought that. I
that
was
can
so
be
stupid when I was
confusing.
little.
And I think, again, a lot of the puzzles, I really like most of them, but with a lot of them, there's just one detail that frustrates me, but it's enough that can, like, it usually, I don't see it, and even though it's something really obvious, like, oh, it's the patient's left, it's enough that it might drive me to look something up because I can't figure it out. Because I think, and, like, I have it down, it's just I missed one tiny thing.
Mm-hmm. Any more thoughts on Henry?
Not on Henry, but I still need to rant about, overall in this whole process. First off, you know what would really show your nephew that you wanted him to own this priceless artifact is that if you put it in your will that he got the crystal skull. Like, do that overall.
Exactly.
Technically, even if he finds the skull, he's not entitled to it because he's only entitled to 30% of whatever it's worth because of
Right.
how you laid out your will.
That's a good point.
Seriously.
Like, the way wills work is what you sell everything in the estate, and everyone's entitled to, like, certain percentages or equal values of the objects or whatever, however he wants it divvied up. But
Yeah, he cared so much
Honestly.
about secrecy that he totally forgot. Like that.
No!
Totally.
this is part 2 of my frustration. He didn't care about secrecy. He was whipping out that crystal skull to show all, like, everybody in his
Well,
life.
he
was
showed.
Come on down, I got something for you to see.
He was secret about where it was, but
Yeah, but everyone got a gander at that thing. Like, Dr. Buford knew about it.
his party
Renee?
trick.
How do
Look
you
at
show it?
my crystal skull. It's the whisper.
Also, like, how is that not creepy? Dentist, creepy old man dude's like, hey, I got something for you to see. Come back in my seat. Here, I'm gonna show you a skull.
I'm
Like-
immortal.
What does that whole process look like? It's like, come on,
Yeah.
I got something. Like, you like pull it out and you're like, it's a skull and it
I've
talks
never-
to me.
I've never thought this deeply about Bruno Bolet before, but
Alright.
now I see.
It's just again, he went through all this trouble of hiding it, but he showed literally all your suspects about it, except for Henry. Henry's the only one who didn't know about
The
it
one that was
existing.
supposed to get it didn't even know. Like,
Yeah, everyone else knew about it, and everyone else was trying to steal it from him.
he
Yeah.
could have at least like maybe written a letter, like hid it somewhere, like, or sent it to. I don't even know, like anything for him to actually like acknowledge that he wants
Yep.
him to start this journey to find
Exactly.
the Whisperer.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta
Yeah,
say,
Bruno's insane.
sorry.
No, you go.
I gotta say, I think Henry is like the most nonchalant, literally don't care suspect ever.
Yeah.
Like he has this detached air about him, like in every single way.
He's been on the phone with the cable company for probably 8 hours trying to
Yeah,
this
right.
cable. Anybody is gonna look like that and act that way after that long. As someone who has routinely dealt with Dell customer service support and they're an official enemy of mine.
It's like he's been through so much lately, just in one day, that it's like he's so detached that he just like doesn't care. He's like, you know what? Let's just have this crazy girl walk through my house, and she's a little bit of excitement, you know.
Yes.
John Mulaney gif of this might as well happen.
Exactly. I feel so bad for him all the time. Like the whole game, I just feel so bad for him.
Okay, I will say though, why did they have to add? I'm sorry if I upset anybody with this, but why did they have to add that horrible fake crying sound effect when he's at his parents' grave?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I want to feel sorry for him, but I can't because it just sounds so, like, childish and cartoonish.
That was really funny.
Like, if it was just silent. I mean, to be fair, Nancy's standing far away. Maybe she wouldn't hear him sniffling.
How loud is he?
He's just letting it all loose.
At the point you're like sobbing his heart out.
I know, like, as a concept, like, it's still, you know, I mean, it gets my heartstrings, but it's just like the moment is completely ruined by that awful sound.
Like, you just done some sniffling noises.
Yes.
Would have been fine.
Some subtlety, please. Thank you.
Also, I feel really bad that he can't even go in to like, you know, he can't even get inside the building because it's locked.
Stand in the rain.
I can't grieve his parents because they locked the building.
So he has to stay on the steps and cry outside in the rain.
Oh
not to mention, as per we've discovered in the beginning, they're not even dead, they're just vampiring out.
Exactly. So they're probably in there sleeping, and because in this game we can't even go through the coffins. Like, you know how in Thornton Hall we can go through the coffins and look at all the skulls and stuff and be weird and intrusive. Yeah. This one we can't even do that. So who's to say that they're vampires, you know? Like, I believe this.
Poor Henry.
They're coming back for him. He's next.
Clearly, yeah. Clearly not. They've just left him. Someone give him some love and support.
Honestly.
Yeah, he needs it. Really needs it.
He does.
Not from Summer.
Dear God, no.
Poor guy. I love his like his little phrases like whatever. Groovy.
Yes. Not the weird one, man.
It's great.
The weird choice for me is that you have to watch the animation of him turning into
I was gonna say that.
I almost said that like earlier.
You don't always, it doesn't always happen. So it just happens randomly, and I'm like, this is too much of a pause. Like, is he gonna like yell at me or something? Like, what is this? Like, it seems so serious.
I feel like it happens 9 times out of 10 for me.
Yeah,
for
me
me
too.
It only happens like a few times, and so it catches me off guard.
It kept happening. I legitimately thought I had to watch it every single time.
Me
so
too.
The fact that y'all are telling me that that's not the case.
It isn't always for me, like, but when it does happen, it's really funny.
I remember in the past, it didn't always happen to me, but in this last playthrough, I know 100% that it happened every single time I clicked on him. It really is a choice.
I was like, yeah, you chose to do this.
It's like, watch me turn around. Like, you have to sit away from me.
It's very
so funny.
Much, you know, Miss Clue doing the intentional transition.
Oh my god.
You're like, why did you make me do this?
Honestly.
Also, I love Henry's voice actor. Like, it just fits him so well. Like it
That
fits his
voice,
face.
man. Smooth
It's
like
such a good
butter.
voice.
He
He's
really is.
my goth king.
This
I
one
you
is
know when I was actually like I remember before I joined Tumblr, I was like on Twitter looking for people who are talking about Henry Bolet, and I was scrolling down all the way back to like literally 2007, and I literally did, and not many people have talked about him, but I remember people saying that like they thought it was weird that how he was like designed. They're like, oh, I like Henry, but he looks like a girl. He's too like
I
feminine. I'm like,
know.
excuse you, let the man wear black nail polish. Like, what's the problem?
Right?
He's just emo. Like it makes him look better. It's part of the aesthetic. Like people saying that they wish he had short hair and no freaking rings on his thumb. Like
DJ, you can be the change you want to see in the world on Henry Bolet Twitter.
exactly. Thank you. I'm trying to start it up. I kept talking about it, and random people were liking it. So clearly, he has fans still. Clearly, the audience is there.
Yes.
I really just need a fix it and like fic of Ned and Henry becoming friends after this. Also, the amazing fake idea that Cambria has
Don't
infected
even
all of us
that.
with
That
about
has been plaguing my
him.
mind.
solving mysteries with people.
Because
Like, I just need more content now.
I remember one of my thoughts was like if they ever brought him back like actually in a game, it would have to be something like I thought it would be cool if there was like a game where a lot of past suspects that were all innocent came back, but this time one of them was guilty of something and they were just all together. It was like a little like reunion. And I thought that's like the only way they could bring him back, and it'd just be weird if they brought him back in person and it was just like he's just here. Like Henry's back. But I think it would make more sense if he was a phone character.
Agreed.
But I love the whole idea of him working with Nancy.
You know what would be great? My ideal situation is you run into Summer in the game, or you
Oh
have
my
to have a phone conversation with her, and you find out that like he dumped her ass, and
I love
he's
that.
doing great for himself.
Love that. He's thriving.
Oh my god, I love that. And
Love
one of your
that.
dialogue options is like, have you talked to Henry at all? And then she like tells you how, yeah, he's all successful now.
Oh my
Yeah,
god, he
like,
could join a
say it
band
as,
and
like-
be like he starts MCR.
So good.
He is Gerard Way.
So good.
I love that. But no, he needs that closure. Like I'd love that if you got to tell off something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, she's like, oh, I had my one opportunity for which a guy I thought was rich, and he did turn out to be wildly successful, but he dumped
Yes.
he dumped me. He didn't see what a catch I was. He just threw to shreds.
I could see it.
But just thinking about the idea of him working with Nancy is like I want that to be reality. Please.
I know. I have not really craved any Nancy Drew fanfics lately, and now I am. Now I'm like, I need this in my life right now.
I saw one of the quotes was when she was like at Castle Moai getting in the jetpack, and Henry would be like, "What is that? Is that a?" And she's like, "Nope. If I'm not back in 10 minutes, assume I'm in the bog where the police got me." I love that. It's just she has no self-preservation at all.
None.
She does not. No.
None. And I'm like, you're supposed to be like a freaking genius detective.
I have to laugh too at the note that Nancy makes in this game in her journal about how Bruno Bolet is like building scale models and hiding eyeballs all around his house, and she's like, geez, this guy should have gotten a life. And I'm like,
Excuse me. She like snooze people's business. You don't have a life, girl. You're looking at everyone else's life.
Ditching all her friends all the time.
Right.
Your boyfriend constantly.
Bruno Bolet was a successful dentist. I mean,
exactly.
Who had hobbies on the side.
Exactly. And like Ned is crying, Nancy, please. Stop ditching them. Like her life is revolved around other people's lives. Like,
yeah.
Seriously, girl. You cannot judge. You cannot judge.
Not at all.
I love that though.
Well,
I still can't get over the mental image of Bruno going around to people being like, want to see my skull?
I love that.
Sorry.
No, it's the best.
That was a
Especially,
worthy
like, imagine
comment.
him with the cat eye. Like,
Oh,
this
I thought
dentist
Yes!
wearing a cat
that's the
eye.
eye I think about the most. Like, where did he get that? Who makes those? Like,
I
is it
Also,
real?
thought
could you
about
imagine
that.
being one of his, like, dental patients? And he's
Having to
wearing,
look.
like, that red eyeball, like, peering into your mouth.
Oh
You
my
have
god.
to look up at that. You can't talk. While I would be like, get me a new dentist. Like, I'm not comfortable
So
with this.
weird.
Not to, like, again, not to say it's the choice of glass eyeballs that he's choosing. Like, he is full force. Like, I am going all out in, like,
Oh yeah,
weird
I applaud
factor.
him for that though. Like
All
to wear those out in public too. You have to be bold. Good for him.
right, well, before we wrap up, I just want to say how much I love Bess Marvin.
Oh, I love her so much.
Angel.
She's the best.
She's so good in this game.
I love every time that Nancy calls her and she's like, nope, I'm not doing it. Well, I gotta do it.
Yes, but I love that she gets that development, you know? Like she doesn't want to do it because that's just her nature, but then she gets to go and do it and she feels all badass and she's like celebrating with Nancy. It's so cute.
And you know what? If she wasn't there, Nancy couldn't have done anything. She would not have solved the mystery. So Bess was
Yes.
like 100% important to the story, you know?
Yes, 100%.
I love
I
that.
love too. My favorite best scene is when she goes to get into the Scuttled Bones meeting and
Oh my
like
God.
drops her voice several octaves
Yeah,
low.
I love that. I love that.
Scuttled bones.
Scuttled bones.
Oh right, yeah.
It's
one for
yeah.
one.
Yes.
It's just so well done.
So good.
The part where she was like, when she snuck in and then her phone went off, like when I was replaying it for the first time in like years, I did not remember this scene at all. So I was like really scared for her safety. 'Cause she's like in a room with all these like masked men, and they were like laughing and they're like, let's get her, and I'm like, oh god.
I know, right?
Especially the phone call after, where
I was like, is
the
she
lightning
safe?
strike.
Like, is she good?
Yeah.
Because imagine if like the head wasn't Dr. Buford, like,
Yeah.
would she have been like beaten up, like,
That's
or
a good
imprisoned
point.
or whatever?
That's a good
Like,
question.
because
I really just want to watch a full meeting. Like, I was intrigued.
Yeah.
I want to know more.
Me too.
What do they do in those meetings?
Same. Okay,
Jean
but
Lafitte.
also,
Jean Le-
what was up with the freaking growl? Who growled at her?
that I just not. Who are these men? Who are they?
So strange.
I don't know about the growl, but one of my favorite things about all of these secret societies is like at the end of the day you have to acknowledge, and they do too, that like y'all are just normal people like running a meeting. And so when Dr. What's his name? Thank you. Oh, and Dr. Buford is standing there and everyone's like leering at her. And then he like just pauses them and is like, Clarence, take over the
I
meeting.
know.
You're
Yeah,
like,
I love that.
you're like, don't do those moments like just not take you out of the fact and be like, I am a grown ass man in a skeleton costume leering over.
This is what I do with my Friday
Free
nights.
time.
Right? I love it.
I love that. Yeah.
I think I saw a post at one point where somebody was like, what if Bess's phone going off was because it was Nancy calling to remind her to turn her phone off? And I was like, that is my headcanon.
That's so
now.
funny. And you know what? If that didn't happen, she would have never known. Well, she
Right.
would have known because she knew his voice, but like she wouldn't have been able to like confront him that fast, you know? They'd have to wait till the next day probably, you know?
So good.
So the game wouldn't have ended that fast. You know?
Yep.
That's crazy.
Anyway, I think that this game is one of the most impressive, like, as far as like the story structure and the way that it all unfolds and like why you're here. And like we talked about, how it's less of a who is the culprit who did this thing, and it's more just like trying to figure out what happened in the first place. And that's really an interesting perspective.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's beautiful, and
Gorgeous.
the atmosphere is just perfect.
Yes,
And
the vibes.
I love some of the characters. I mean, they're all very interesting, but I love Henry.
Yes.
So it's a good time,
And I
I think
also like Lamont a lot too. Just I
Oh,
wanted
he's
to
great.
say it.
I wish that we worked more with him. I wish there was more.
I know, me too.
I feel like he would have really gone with it if you just explain the situation. He'd be like, "Yeah, I'll help you out."
Listen, it's a good thing that we don't have more Lamont interactions for his own health and
For his own safety, because Bess was like, "I'm going to hurt this man." Bess woke up and chose violence. She was like,
Today's
like,
agenda: violence and shopping.
Yes.
literally, she was like terrorizing the poor shop owner. Probably never wanted to see her again. He specifically was like, "That hot sauce really gets me. Please, stay away from that." And then when he eats it, he doesn't even question the fact that she put it in. Like,
I mean, he doesn't have the time.
he's just gotta go. Poor guy.
Yes, the vibes and the atmosphere in this whole game are just so amazing, and the music
Oh, I love it.
is
That's
so
one thing.
perfect.
That's one thing her does really well is the atmosphere. They've really nailed it for a lot of them, especially the spooky ones.
Yes.
That's probably why this is in my top. It's my second favorite after Shadow Water's Edge, because that one is just immaculate. Like the music, the it's just all the atmosphere. It makes me feel like I'm there. Oh,
Yes.
I love it.
Excellent.
Yeah, I agree. I just think it's really well done, and it's such an interesting story, and it's really one that I even found myself while playing, that I felt like I was in the game, and I got really caught up in the moment of being there and like getting invested in what I was doing.
Yeah, and I got like emotionally attached to like the characters. Like I just feel really bad for Henry.
Yes, give us more Henry Bolet.
More Henry, please. He's
Definitely.
inactive. Yeah, it's a good game.
Super, super good.
Definitely top tier. And I wish that when I was little I would have appreciated it more, but
That's okay.
here I am now.
You have plenty of time to appreciate. All right. So with that, Clue Crew, thanks for listening, and thank you, CJ, for being here.
Thank you for having me on. I remember when you DM'd me on Tumblr and was like, you can come on if you want. I was talking to Becca about it because we were both like kind of fangirling. We were like, oh my god, I want to be on the podcast. Oh my god. No, literally, because she was like the only person I talked to. And I was like, oh my god, it's so fun. I listen to it every week, And then and then I got that DM and I was like, they invited me on.
Oh my god, that's so cute.
Oh, yeah.
We're so excited to have you.
Thank you.
I mean, I've been looking forward to having you for Crystal Skull Week, obviously, since I messaged you literally within like 3 or 4 weeks. I was like, CJ, Crystal Skull.
Yes.
I'm so happy I had the pleasure to come on here. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. You're so sweet. And it was really, really cool getting to hear all of your thoughts. So
yes.
We will return next week to talk about
everyone's favorite,
the cursed game. I haven't played any of it yet, so
I might have some hot takes for y'all next week. So
also, I haven't seen anyone talk about it like at all. Is anyone playing it? Like,
I'm gonna play it because
I am too. I know Katie's a fan. I enjoyed it the first time, so we'll see what we're coming in with.
But anyway, we'll save it all for next week. Anyway, thank you once again. I'm sorry if it felt like I was kind of like rushing towards the end there, but we're getting close to 2 hours here, so.
Oh really? Oh my god.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry to put a cap on it, but
it's good.
It must be done. It was a lot of fun, though. Thank you so much once again to both of you guys, and I hope that you have a wonderful night.
Same to you. Have a good one.
Bye, you guys.
Bye.